right, today's hot topic, my man, TLJ, a.k.a. Mr. Tony Lewis Jr. Hello, TLJ.
Good morning. What's up?
You are here today, TLJ, to tell us a little bit about this day of empathy that you've kicked off. So let's talk a little bit about today is a day of empathy.
Today is the day of empathy for those impacted by crime and incarceration. Actually, this initiative was started by Cut 50, which is an organization founded by Van Jones and Jessica Jackson. So it was a national event, actually, and I'm the DC ambassador. So I thought, around the country, groups have been going to lobby their state houses and legislators around criminal justice reform. I do that every day. So I thought it would be more of a good look for us to gather to celebrate, stand in solidarity with our incarcerated residents. Every day at 4 p.m. in the federal system, they do a standing count. So for empathy is the way for people to feel how another person, or put yourself in another person's shoes. So at 4 p.m., we're asking people whether you can join us at DOES, which is 4058 Minnesota Avenue, or you can participate virtually to stand and be counted, and to think about what that must feel like. Think about our loved ones that are away, and think about the children of those incarcerated individuals that are here with us, and what are we doing to support them, and ultimately what are we doing to create certain employment opportunities when those people return. 95% of people that are incarcerated will return to the community. I think from a public safety standpoint, it makes us safer for us to foster inclusion for them, and create an opportunity where they can meld into society and be positive, and if not for their sake, then for the sake of their children and their communities.
And speaking of children, you are a product of your father being incarcerated, and you've spoken a lot about that. That's big part of your advocacy. It comes from your experience of having a father who's been locked up for most of your life.
Yeah, last 30 years, my father been incarcerated. And so I would say that having an incarcerated parent is the greatest destabilizer, right, for a child. It's the greatest trauma, because what it does is it cues that there are other traumas going on, whether it's a mentally ill parent, whether it's a parent addicted to drugs, a deceased parent living in an impoverished community, a community where violence is prevalent. All of having an incarcerated parent is an indicator of all of those other traumas. And so I've also worked and pushed school systems to start to try to identify those children for the sake of providing supports around mentoring and behavioral health, all of the things that we know is necessary to help kids overcome that. And again, even as an adult, my father went to prison, I was going on 9, and I'm going on 39. Wow. And also now I have 2 daughters, right? And so that sort of generational trauma is being passed down. They want to know why Pop can't come home when we go to visit, and things of that nature. So I just wanted to really be transparent enough for people to understand how pervasive mass incarceration is, and it does not just stop with those locked up. It really transcends to their families and their communities.
Now, before I let you go, TLJ, with this day of empathy, just kind of playing devil's advocate, are we standing with all prisoners? Because there are some people, and probably quite a few, that probably belong in prison. So when we do a day of empathy, how does that, are we empathizing with murderers, with rapists, with abusers? I mean, right now, one of the big stories is that this man who murdered a young lady is about to be out after 9 years.
Actually, a friend of mine, that was her friend in high school. And, shout out to Sharice and the girl's family. So what empathy is about, so Cut 50 has a saying that crime hurts, justice should heal. Right. So us talking about empathy and being empathetic is not saying that people shouldn't be held accountable for their actions.
Okay.
And so I think that's what we got to think about. What we're talking about around empathy is how, when people do, because like that guy, people will return to us. And so what we're saying is, are people getting better? How can we minimize them reoffending? Right. So what is the process while they're in prison? Are people becoming better people? Are they atoning? And when they return to the community, do we have opportunities for them to, if they're committed to change, to really do that? Every day for the last 19 years of my life, I've been helping men and women return, and it's way too arduous, right? In terms of them getting back on their feet and doing the things that we said we wanted them to do prior to going to prison. And we also got to start to look at, we want people to be empathetic, because a lot of times state violence leads to individual violence. So we have communities that are void of certain opportunities that even in, like, you look at people like my dad or whomever, and young men from Washington D.C., you know, and drugs just were flooded, right? That they bring the drugs and the guns not to take away from their accountability, but there are other pieces to these puzzles. And so empathy is about looking at all of that and saying, how can we sort of reimagine how we operate? And that ultimately it is about making us all safer.
I looked at that story and I thought about the mother.
Yeah, me too.
And that mother basically saying, you know, it's hard for her to understand how this man that committed this crime is out in 9 years.
Yeah, I mean, I said
that idea of like, okay, I'm supposed to stand in empathy with him or assume that he should be out because he did his time. And I think that's kind of one of the things that, you know, it's hard to grasp. How do I tell that mom to stand in empathy with this man?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think empathy is hard just in general for humans to really understand, to grasp that concept. And I feel like a day of empathy kind of pushes that notion, because how many times when a situation doesn't happen to us or we're not directly connected to it, it's hard to fully really empathize with it.
And that is the point. And like to make people think of, because our criminal justice system has become what it is, however broken it may be, because of that it was a lot of times laws and policies have been created by people who have not gone through what the people that they are prosecuting or the people in certain communities and they have went through and go through every day. I know it's hard to grab sort of these isolated incidents. I mean, the opposite end of that is that, you know, you look at somebody, not to even personalize this, but you look at my father who had never been to prison before, get life without parole for selling drugs. He has a nonviolent drug offense, right? And he's been in prison 30 years, and a guy that rapes and kills a woman, you know, does 9 years in prison. I mean, I think that's a way to look at our system, and again, reform across. But we also can't. I think what happens is that we'll look at the violent offenders. I think is something we got to really look at too, because you know judges giving time, right? And when those people do that time, when those individuals come home, because you're not gonna stop him from he's home. That guy gonna come home, and other people who commit heinous crimes or what have you, they're gonna come home. And they paid their debt. So what we got to work on is how do we stop that individual from doing that again, right? Because the fact of the matter is those people they do return to our community, and I think so from an empathy standpoint, it doesn't mean that it's okay what they did. Of course, it's not. It doesn't mean that you have to you know, embrace those people, but they are in our community, and we got to start thinking on a bigger scale to say, well, what can we do to stop somebody else from getting hurt? And I think that's all of our role and all of our job to do that.
All right, so 4 p.m. today, Day of Empathy. Let us know how we can follow you. You send us the flyer, too, to use if you want to stand virtually.
Yeah, Mr. Tony Lewis Jr. on IG and Twitter, Facebook, Mr. Tony Lewis Jr. We want you to, if you can't make it to 4058 Minnesota Avenue, which is the D.C. Department of Employment Services, shout out Charles Jones and Dr. Hughes. Post a picture or video at 4 p.m. I don't care if you're at the gym. I don't care if you're in a meeting. I don't care if you're a happy hour. We need you to post that picture. Hashtag Day of Empathy. Hashtag Stand and Be Counted.
There it is.
Thank you,
Tony
Thanks,
Lewis Jr. right there. Always standing with the people. It's 93.9 WKYS. Day of Empathy.